sitting down today with Alex Boyce, a magician out of New York City who I've been amazed by and been bewildered. And thank you, Alex, for taking the time today to sit down with me and chat all things magic, you, Tannens, and the whole.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Um, my first question I like to open up with is everybody had that first experience when they experienced magic or seeing a magician or what got them into it. Can you tell me a little bit about where you began and how you got into all of this?
Yeah, I think I must have been really young when I was fascinated by magic because I remember seeing a World's Greatest special at a very young age, but I think we were watching it because I was already interested in magic. And so I really loved anything revolving around entertainment or the arts or performing or being in front of a group of people. Anything like that was really exciting to me at a young age. And I didn't have a lot of inhibitions, and I was very precocious. And so that was always kind of pushing me in that direction for sure. And I think what was really the couple of early turning points, though, was that my mom was in education. She recently retired, but was in education. And she knew a middle school teacher she worked with, an art teacher, middle school art teacher named Mary Seco Cooper. And Mary was a quintessential hobbyist, really wonderful person in magic who loved Daryl and loved Michael Lamar and loved the Stevens Magic series. And she had all of those on VHS. And Mary would invite me over and teach me tricks. And we'd watch videos of all of that stuff together. And it was a great introduction to a lot of these players in magic. And I didn't, at a young age, didn't know that these videos were produced 20, 30 years before that. So I remember the first time I saw Michael Lamar, I was really surprised that he didn't have any hair because I thought these videos were contemporary. They were 30 years old.
All of us thought that.
Yeah, well, it was really a great introduction to that side of magic. And there was a local IBM ring. And I thought that was really useful and amazing because they had lectures come through. And my first magic lecture was Rocco. And it was my first little peek inside the behind the scenes of magic, or the magic world, or the world of magic that the public isn't introduced to so easily beyond David Copperfield shows and the David Blaine specials, which were awesome too. And that Rocco lecture was incredible because he came out, it was just after his most recent FISM experience where he had won the award for most original act. And here we are in this tiny little hotel. I grew up in central New York, about 3.5 hours from New York City. And it was incredible. I had no idea what to expect. And he does this amazing act. And it's filled now, even to this day, with some of the best magic. If you were to write down a great effect, it'd be hard to beat that. You have an empty wine glass, you blow smoke into it, it becomes filled with milk, and the milk is poured in your hand and it's ice cream.
Great.
It's unbelievable. And so he performs the entire routine. It was stunning. I think even knowledgeable magicians must have been blown away. And I was very young and inexperienced. And then he proceeded to lecture and teach the entirety of everything. And he was really kind, and he was passing me anytime he made candy appear, or, the way that Rocco makes stuff appear, he just was throwing it to me the whole time. And he gave me DVDs on everything. It was really kind. And it was a great beginning into that side of the world of magic. But they had great lecturers come through. I remember Boris Wilde and Paul Gertner, and they had a lot of really great lecturers. There's a guy named Tony Econ who wrote a column for the Linking Ring for a long time, who was actually from that area, but he had moved away, and he taught gambling stuff. And so it was just a great exposure to that whole world of magic at a young age, and seeing that kind of stuff without even ever, that was before I ever left the area as a kid, which my parents did encourage me to do pretty quickly, though. They started, putting me on a plane there was a great local IBM member there, a guy named Phil Messina, Phil Messina, PT the Clown, he went by. And again, He was a sergeant of arms for the IBM nationally. This was a quintessential amateur. This guy, you meet him and he had a wallet that was inches thick, and he would bring it out and he said, I've got 45 minutes of material in this wallet, right?
Wow.
And he loved the Tree of Hearts. That was his favorite trick. But he was really involved and he knew everybody. He'd been around. I think he had been to like something like all the 4F conventions except for 3 over that whole time. So
Wow.
he knew everybody. He was really connected. And I would go to conventions with him as a kid. He
Nice.
was he was getting up there. And so it was unclear who was taking care of or babysitting who exactly.
Right.
But it was great because he went to every IBM convention every year, didn't matter where it was. And so that first big convention I ever went to was an IBM in Dallas. And it was produced with, I think his name was Roger Miller and David Sandy. And David Sandy had just a lot of experience producing conventions. And so that convention now, it was remarkable to me then because I hadn't been to a multi-day convention at that point. It blew me away. And now I've been to a lot of conventions, and looking back, it's still one of the best conventions I went to. The close-up shows were incredible. The talent was amazing. The gala shows were amazing. They were in a huge theater that they sold a lot of tickets to for the evening
Mm.
shows. So you could see this lay public energy for these evening shows. And so there was a lot of attention to detail, both in the performances and the way that they were set up and structured. There was all these one-man shows. There was a Max Maven one-man show. There was a Dana Daniels one-man show. The final gala show had Jeff McBride and Tom Sony and Company, and Tom Mullica doing Skeleton, and Walter Zaney Blaney and his daughter Becky Blaney doing the ladder levitation, and Max Maven did an appearance on that, and Darren Romeo and Gabe Blackstone did the floating light bulb at the end, and it was just like, that was a jam-packed show, again, in a beautiful theater downtown. So it was a lot of exposure to
Yeah.
magic. That was all awesome.
Do you feel like everybody I've spoken to who are mutual friends or anybody, and I say, Alex Boyce is one of my favorite magicians. One of the things that I say, and what we all kind of say, is that although you're a young guy, you're coming off as we could have dropped you in with the guys from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, and you have this aura around you. Do you feel like your early influences kind of shape that, or are you an old soul? Because I'm an old soul, so when I go into performance, I kind of embody Frank Garcia a little bit,
Oh, cool.
and yeah, which is interesting. So I kind of get into that. You know, maybe
Yeah,
he's a
I think
mobster, maybe he's
that
not.
sure. Well, that's interesting. I'd love to
Yeah,
see that sometime. Yeah, I think there is a timelessness that was attractive to me, and not when I was really young, but I was getting a little older, kind of high school into college. I was interested in Mad Men and the Rat Pack in the 1960s, but I was never interested in being a vintage act or a throwback
right.
act. I wanted something that hinted to a different style, but I want to be portraying a character of a different time. Um, and so that was a goal. Yeah, it wasn't an accident that that happened.
Hmm.
Um, and that was just because I followed what I liked, and that
Yeah.
was something that I was interested in.
Do you think as a performer and coupling it with being a magician, do you feel like as a performer in general, when you're going through how you want your style to be and you're finding this character, can you talk a little bit about, because I don't think you're a character. I think we've talked a few times and you are this, and
Mm.
but I'm sure you amplify it a little bit, once you kind of go on stage. Can you talk about development of that and how you routine things? And
Yeah, I wonder what the best way to talk about it is. It's something that I think I just make decisions and I
hmm.
notice what I like, and now I'm kind of retroactively looking at the decisions I make and I go, oh, this is something. There's an overarching goal here,
Hmm.
and then that makes the next decisions a lot easier. And so over time, it becomes more precise and more clear, and it becomes really obvious what material to me works for me, what material wouldn't be a good fit for me, what scripting choices are leaning towards something that is part of the bigger picture and
Right.
that isn't.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, crystallizing all of that makes it more possible. But as far as persona, I think Tom Marie says is the most important aspect.
Hmm.
And I like Tina Leonard, how she talks about how there's it's not so much a character as it is like facets of yourself and what facets
Right.
you reveal. And I find that all really like attractive and useful language when I'm thinking about material, and especially when you're putting together uh, a longer show, or if I'm hosting a show and I'm going to be doing 4 or 5 spots throughout. How do they work together so that it all feels cohesive, but it's not repetitive?
Right.
And so that is all, yeah, part of the process is what what do you want to think about? What do you want to talk about? What kind of essence do you want to create, right? It's
Right.
not so much that I want them to think something of me specifically, but I want to create an atmosphere through my performance.
Right.
And hopefully that impacts the way they view me and the magic, and they get that energy and excitement.
You've consulted for the Lincoln Center and Netflix a little bit, and I'm sure you've consulted for other magicians and collaborated. How is that different from performing live? Do you feel like maybe doing it on film is a little bit different? And
Yeah, I
kind of what
think
you were saying with,
probably.
yeah,
But the consulting for the theatrical and film stuff is really unique because oftentimes it's really goal specific, at least in my experience. They're calling with a really, like I said, specific moment in mind. So Lincoln Center, for instance, there was a moment in the show where there wasn't even a magician character, but they wanted uh, in the play, a bird was supposed to fly through the window, lay 3 eggs, and fly away. And the production wanted it to be a real bird, and they didn't want it to fly. And so, in essence, what that meant was that I had to train an actor to make a bird appear, but in such a way that didn't feel like a magic trick, that just felt like a bird came into the room somehow. And then make 3 eggs appear, because you can't make a bird lay
right,
3 eggs on command, and then go away, fly away. And so that is the goal. There's a Netflix movie called The Week Of that was really fun because there's an Adam Sandler movie. And what's amazing about that is he just creates this great atmosphere there where you're working together. It feels like a real community. His wife actually puts together a summer camp for all the people that work there for their
oh
kids.
wow,
So it's really like this really great community collaborative. He makes sure the catering is incredible. I mean, he just wants people to really have a great time working on this project. And so that one, it was about a bad wedding, basically, in the hair of a bad wedding magician. So they wanted him to be silly and goofy, but the magic they wanted to be
right,
good.
mm,
And so that one was really wonderful because the actor Joel Marsh Garland, he had been on Orange is the New Black. And when you're working with actors in magic, it's often really dependent on how much work they're willing to put in. And he was really excited. He loved circus, and he could balance a ladder on his face, and he loved to practice. And so it was a great experience, and I learned a lot doing it. And there's some things that I would have done differently now with more experience looking back. And there's things that I'm excited about, but I would only do them differently now because I've had that experience.
mm-hmm.
But it was a great team to work with, and a lot of fun to work on that project.
That's awesome. I didn't realize. I've heard stories of Adam Sandler on set and some of the things he does, but I didn't realize his wife does a summer camp, which is pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
it's so great. There was one time I was in a room, we were in between shots, and I think it was myself, and there might have been one other person from the tech team that was in this room, and Adam Sandler walked in. We're the only 2 people in the room, and he kind of finds a part of the floor, and he's shifting his weight back and forth as if he's checking the creakiness of the
Mm-hmm.
floor, kind of looking at it and shifting his weight. And then he lets out through his mouth like a big fart noise. It was just to make us, the 2 other people, laugh in the room. But he really set it up for a long time. He was really
Yeah,
building it up. So yeah, it's a great
it's great
energy.
comedy. He's mastered it.
I was certainly consistent in that. But it was, like I said, it was really great to see. His goal was to make sure everyone has a great time. And that's, if you stick to your goal, it'd be
Yeah,
really useful. Yeah.
absolutely. Upon my research, one of the really interesting things I came across was that you are one of the first American magicians to perform in Cuba post-revolution.
Yes. That was amazing.
That kind of blew me away. I was like, what? So
It
tell
was
me a little bit
incredible.
about that.
I think it was in 2018. Um, there's some amazing folks. John Rose is his name, a really wonderful person who has a rich background in magic. And that's one of the great things I love about magic is that there's all these people who are fascinating, successful, interesting people who have a rich history in magic and
Of
love
course.
magic and love magicians. And John is someone like this, and he has had a really interesting, amazing career in marketing and PR in Russia and Cuba. And so around 2018, he and with the help of some folks like John Stetson and Bill Hers, put together this magic festival, public magic festival. Oh, and also mention John's family, John Rose's family too, was also working really hard on this and did incredible work to make this whole thing happen. Um, so what it was a government sanctioned cultural exchange where they brought
Hmm.
in magicians to come perform at this magic festival, public facing magic festival there in Cuba. And while they did it, the magicians that were there, we also got to have a little magic convention. And we were at the Hotel Nacional where Frank Sinatra performed. And it's an amazing country. People say that it's like, 1960.
I
You're
feel like
stuck in
it's
that
perfect
time.
for you.
It is in a way. It was really amazing. But it's like 1960 happened for 50 years in a row. It's not
Wow.
it's not like you're there. It's sort of all falling apart and coming together and sticking together through this grit of these amazing people who are living in a really extraordinary circumstance. It's a really challenging circumstance. Um, I found the audiences were really amazing. I got to perform in this nightclub called Salon Rojo, right in downtown Havana, and they had incredible performances in their national theater there. And so it was this awesome experience to be around these other magicians, and my family came because again, this is once in a lifetime experience. So my dad and my mom, my sister, my partner Talia, they all came, and it was great to share that all with them, and got to meet a lot of magicians I hadn't met before, and spend time with magicians that I do know really well and love, and had to have that experience together was amazing, and also to have this time in Havana where every restaurant we went to, they were like, this is the restaurant where the Pope ate when he came. This is the restaurant Obama ate when he
Oh
came. And it was,
wow.
John and the team, and they really made this a special experience for us too. And so, yeah, it was a totally unique, unbelievable experience to have been there. And the people, the magicians in Cuba too, what circumstances they're under. They love magic. They're passionate about magic, but the way to get things into the country is really tough. I mean, every
Hmm.
once in a while, a magician will travel to a South American country and come back with a box of stuff from a magic shop there, but it's really, really hard for them to get materials and
How
um,
are they learning? I guess like just sporadically they're getting stuff bite by
yeah,
bite or
I'm also curious, like, I wonder now, 2018, how much has changed even since then? I'm not sure.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of inspiration from online, but there really hadn't been a lot of meeting of people in person yet. Yeah, but it was
Interesting.
incredible.
Yeah, I would imagine I've had a couple people go and visit there and they say just seeing some of the cars that like here are gone.
Oh yeah, no, because
Cars,
they can't get the stuff, and that you ask, about this car that's there, and say, the engine they've replaced it 6 times. Oh, it's
yeah.
unbelievable.
And our
Uh,
grandparents are proud of that. They're like, yeah,
Oh
good
yeah,
job.
no, they work hard. It's amazing. Yeah, they've got a lot of grit and they figure it out. It's a can-do attitude. It's really amazing. And it's just an amazing gift of magic, the way I've been to travel all over and meet interesting people and have these incredible experiences and go to different countries and it's all because magic, it just keeps giving and giving and giving. And as long as you keep investing in giving back to it, I think it's such a treat. It'll always give back to you more than you can give back to it. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I always say leave magic better than you found it because it'll always be good to you at the end. So,
Yeah, otherwise, what's the point? I don't understand why you would just
right.
take from it. Yeah, what are you contributing? What are you giving to magic? And where are you moving it? Is a good question to ask ourselves.
Yeah, that's a great segue into talking about Tannen's and
Mm.
Tannen's Magic Camp. You went from being a camper there to now I would say you're just a mentor there and you go and you're heavily involved. I came across you through Tannen's a few years ago. And can you talk to me a little bit about what your experience at Tannen's was? And then we can kind of go into the camp.
Yeah, I thought the camp it was always incredible. As a kid, I would look forward to it all year round, and that week, you're just immersed in magic. And even if it was just a magic convention, if it was a week long where everyone stayed in the same building and saw the same shows and got to have the communal experience, I think it'd be amazing. But it's a lot more than that, because the group of people, there's our kids who are, they're just as passionate and excited about magic as we are, but they're young and they have to go to school and they have other obligations and they don't get to travel. And so this time to be surrounded by other magicians, they're so excited, they're so hungry, they want to learn, they're passionate. And then the people who come to be at Tannen's camp to teach, it's a really great group of people because they're all donating their time. They want to be there, maybe for different reasons, but they all have a reason that they want to be there. There's something special about they want to give in some way. And to create an experience. And that's a really great thing to be locked in for a whole week. And so I loved it growing up as a camper, and I got to meet a lot of mentors that way and learned so much, not just about tricks, but really, the way it's set up is there's a class in the morning, and then there's a lecture in the afternoon and a workshop after that, and then the evening shows. And so I took workshops in business. I took workshops in performance styles, and the classes, I took close-up classes, I took stage classes. The lectures were great because they would expose you to all different things. We had lectures, speaking of consulting, we had lectures that talked about, Matt Holtzclaw and Nate Dendy talked about their theatrical consulting. We had lectures on history. We had very specific lectures. There was a ring and string lecture I'll never forget, because everyone got a ring and string. And so it was just 10 people, each one of them teaching one move with ring and string. And again, it just gets you get exposed to things you would never have thought about.
Yeah.
And now looking back, there's things I didn't even realize would be a big influence on me. One thing was, people have their magazine collections, and fortunately, unfortunately, whatever your perspective is, the magazines are really one of the only things in magic that have decreased in value in the last 15 or 20 years. Posters, apparatus, books, a lot of that is can maintain or increased its value, but magazines have not. There's a lot of reasons why. But so what often happened was, somebody would have a magazine collection, an older magician, and donate it to the camp and just ask them to be given out. And the way the camp would do that was they would just leave the magazines out everywhere in the common rooms and in the hallways, and so I would always peruse them and look through and go, oh, what's this? And that was really amazing, because magazines, and especially older magazines, is a great way to stumble on things. So when because if you're passionate, interested about something, you'll research it and try to learn more. But if you don't know what's out there, you don't know what questions to ask, you don't know what to be exposed to.
Yeah.
Unless you're exposed to it. And magazines is great because you see advertisements for things, and these vintage magazines, these older magic magazines that had been, 20, 30 years before I was looking at them.
Oh, yeah.
You get introduced to different names of magicians you wouldn't have ever thought about before. The lineups for a convention, see the lineups of who this is, and you go, okay, who is this? And now it was great because at this point we had, I had YouTube and Google, and I could go home and watch their act. Right. And so it was really great to be exposed through these older magazines to magic and build up a knowledge of what was going on in magic, not just when I was around, but even before then.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an interesting way to kind of foster some sort of, or even cultivate a sense of, even as a magician, we are always researching, always looking into stuff. And at least for me, having just magazines just out like that from different time periods is really interesting to kind of cultivate. Your brain starts to tinker and wonder, and you start to go down a rabbit hole. And
yeah,
that's interesting.
I would really strongly suggest, if you're someone that loves magic, I think a magazine subscription that has a digital component is really useful. I know Genie does this because I'm a subscriber. You get the back catalog of Genie and Magic Magazine, and it's searchable. And one of my just in between hobbies is just that I'll pull up an old magazine frequently, just totally randomly by the cover, and go through it and read it. And it's a great way, again, to just pop up on stuff you would never have thought about. And then it gets you going, because then you see a new idea, and then you're thinking about it, and then you can go to the bookshelves, and then you can go to like Conjuring Archive, which is really great, and you can start pinging back and forth between your books, and it's a great way to think about new magic and research and find ideas you wouldn't have otherwise come across.
absolutely. I inherited a almost full complete collection of the Sphinx magazines from issue
Mm.
1 all
Mm-hmm.
the way to the last one. And going through it's there's just so much in there that there's a lot of great essays, a lot of great thinking, a lot of, and this is before, when you're looking at kind of the constellation of magic and the different branches. This is kind of right in the middle. Di Vernon was still really young, and some of it he wasn't even born yet, and going into all the information, and it's just that timeline going into Genie and all these other magazines it baffles me.
Yeah.
It's amazing that our art has been alive for so long.
Yeah, it's a really, really great resource, I find, and I just think it's fun. If I'm bored and I'm sitting around or I'm traveling, it's something that I'll often
Oh yeah.
do to pass the time. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're where you are with Tannen's Magic Camp now? Do you feel like it's gone full circle? As you're an instructor, you kind of see the next generation coming through, and you go, "Wow."
Yeah, there's certainly a day that I realized that I needed a transition from we were talking about before, giving and taking, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
day where I realized that I needed to be more focused on sharing information and sharing with the campers. Um, because I transitioned directly from being a camper and a counselor and staff, there was definitely a time where I was trying to think about what I was going to be adding of value. And early on, what I thought was useful or adding a value was that uh, these great magicians that would come had professional careers for 20 years. When you're 16, your questions and practical needs of like getting a gig and how much you're charging and how do you turn that
Mm-hmm.
into another job are a bit removed actually from the things that they're working on at that point in their career.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, just to be a few years older and transitioning at that point, I was able to offer more help in that
Yeah.
space. And now as I've gotten older, I'm seeing that the people that were the
Right.
campers that those early years, they're now some of the people that are coming back and performing and teaching.
Right.
And so it's now their time to do that. And it's a great, like exactly like you mentioned, it's a full circle thing. It continues, and I see it as a place to continue to invest in and make better and better every year. And it seems to be happening. Really, really an awesome program. And for any of the listeners, if you feel like you've gotten something from Magic and you're looking for a way to give back, the scholarship program is really important because the so many of the kids use the scholarship program, either full or partial scholarships to come to camp. So if you're looking for a way to give back, it's a really easy and great way to give back to Magic.
Do you know if there an international? I'm not really sure. Like, are people flying in, like
Yeah,
kids from?
absolutely.
Really?
Hmm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know
Kids
that.
fly from Europe and Australia and all over the country. There's a big West Coast contingent that comes every year and flies
Oh
over
wow.
South America, Canada. Yes, they fly from all over. And what's really great about that is, again, these kids meet each other and now they have a friend on the other side of the world that has
Right.
the shared interest in magic. And, some of my friends that I talk to every day were kids that I met at Magic Camp when we were, 11 or 12 years old. And so it's a great community. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're always, again, trying to push ourselves and help each other and make our performances and magic better together. Yeah.
I've noticed your time in Tannins, you had made a shift, well, what seemed like a shift to everyone who was kind of watching it in your career, where you kind of not dwindled away from Tannins. You're always going to be connected to Tannins, I think, but you kind of were like, now I'm going to go a little bit more solo and not be as much, involved with Tannins. I'm going to take my cronies and we're going to go and do some amazing things. Can you talk to me a little bit about Speakeasy Magic at the McKittrick and how that came about and
Sure.
how
Yeah,
you
I'll
got
say
involved
that
there?
what happened with Tannins is wonderful. Adam Blumenthal, the proprietor, I had known him growing up at camp. And when I graduated college, I was going to NYU, and so I was already in New York City. And part of the goal was to stay in New York. And I was performing at gigs, but it was a little unclear to me how consistent that would be. And so I asked Adam if it would be helpful to have me on staff at Tannen's, not to be a demonstrator or to uh, basically to fill a position, but to create something new where I come in and help him achieve things like the camp and
Mm-hmm.
the booth that he does at Tannen's or at a Magic Live every year. That's really amazing. Basically, be a project helper
Yeah.
and cataloging. There's a big archive there and helping work on that. And I did all of that, and it was really awesome. And what was happening over time is there's all these great magicians that work at Tannen's, and the challenge with that is they end up getting performance opportunities, and
Right.
so they leave. And so what was happening is over time there wasn't somebody to demo anymore, and I was asked to step in and fill that. And then I ended up basically doing everything at some point, and that was never really the intention on anyone's part, but it's just kind of how it ended up happening. And so even at my just out of school, least busiest, I never really had time to be doing it. It's
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking about this last night. You mentioned Speakeasy Magic. I was just talking about this last night. I couldn't believe there was a time I was working at a nightclub called The Box in New York City, where the call time is 12:30 to go on at 1:30,
Oh
and I
wow.
was doing that. I was getting home around 2:30, and then working at Tannen's from 10 to 6. Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was crazy that I was doing it. So even then, I was really kind of busy and crazy. Didn't have time to be doing it, but I was learning so much about magic. And again, the opportunity to work at Tannen's, to go through, there's all these drawers. If you've ever been at Tannen's, you see all these metal drawers, and just to spend after hours one day going through every drawer and picking up things and learning, just again, exposing yourself to what's out there was really awesome. And so that was learned a lot. It was an amazing experience. And one thing I think I learned from Tannen's working there with the demonstrating was how useful it is to write a script. People say to
Mm.
write a script. There's books about writing a script. My friends and collaborators always encouraging to write a script. Adam Rubin, good friend of mine, we worked on Bizarre Brooklyn together. He's a huge proponent of write a script. But for me, I really felt that in my muscle and my experience at Tannen's, because I was able to really find the difference between this, the tricks I was performing, where I had really taken a moment, didn't even have to take that long, half an hour, think about what's a presentation that I can do for this and write it down. And the ones I didn't, there was a stark difference. And so that made me really feel how important that was.
Mm.
But you mentioned Speakeasy Magic. It's unbelievable now to me that we've been running for 6 years now. We had 18 months off with COVID, but now it's been 6 years since we first started the show. And there's an amazing origin story that involves a misunderstanding and someone wanting to do Todd Robbins wanting to do a seance show, and someone asking for a card, and they thought they said cards, and a whole incredible whirlwind of events that led
Mm.
to the first show, which was really just to try this thing out for one night. And now it's amazing to see what it's become. And I'm so proud to be a part of it since the first night. There's a core of group of magicians who make up the cast: Matt Holtzclaw, Prakash Peru, Rachel Wax, Mark Calabrese, Patrick Davis, and myself. And then there's this amazing team of people who also come in and fill out the show. There's great magicians. Again, Jeff Kellogg does this amazing, very memorable thing. A lot of people walk out the show, they get a chance to see Jeff because they talk about that because it's really incredible. Jeff Grow. But there's even more. There's a lot of really great performers, and it's all helmed by Todd Robbins, who so grateful to be part of that because, Todd, I still think now, when I think of the great magic shows I saw, Play Dead always comes to mind. It shocked me.
Mm.
And I was stunned by the magic and the performance and everything when I saw Play Dead, which he created with Teller, and the magic was done with that team, including Johnny Thompson and Matt Holtzclaw as well. Unbelievable magic. I'll never forget a naked woman crawling out of a layperson's belly on stage. It's unbelievable. It was just a stunning performance. And so to now work with Todd so frequently is a really delight. And the people behind Speakeasy Magic, the producers who created the McKittrick Hotel and now an amazing immersive experience in New York City called Life and Trust, are hop hop pros. It's unbelievable what they do. The Broadway grosses are public,
Mm-hmm.
and I was an intern for a Broadway producer when I was in high school. And so I got in the habit every once in a while to look at Broadway grosses and check that out. And you have your big hits: Lion King, Wicked,
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton. They're always going to have great numbers.
Absolutely.
But you can see where other shows are and what weeks throughout the year
Mm-hmm.
are good weeks in New York City for
Right.
theater going. And one thing I'm amazed by constantly is how this amazing machine of Speakeasy Magic has turned into this incredible thing where people are buying tickets all the time. It's not an inexpensive night out at all. And yet people come over and over and over again. New people find out about the show, they bring friends. And for that success to kind of continue, where
Mm-hmm.
now the show has its own permanent venue in the shadow of the Flatiron building, and to see guests, again, just last night, what a treat it is to be part of that show. Um, and also for me, I mean, it was really, I'm not exactly sure how I got these ideas when I was a kid of like what I wanted,
We never
but
do.
no, but somehow I thought that I wanted to be working in like a topless review show in Europe, um, or working in the cabarets, the nightclub cabarets of the
Yeah.
1940s in America, where performers would have an act on stage, and a lot of the great magicians, Del Rey certainly comes to mind, would have an act on stage and then would perform close-up magic at your table in this nightclub. And I was always pragmatic. I always worked on magic that I could do wherever I was being booked to perform. However, I was always also working on stuff that people had gave me good advice. It was the right advice,
Mm-hmm.
that I should pursue things more practical and commercial. But I was just fascinated by what I was fascinated by. And so I had to continue working on that. And how delighted I am now and how grateful I am now that I get this opportunity to perform in a show, this Speakeasy Magic, that is one of these facets of one of the things I wanted to be doing growing up, which is this sort of
Yeah.
1940s nightclub, and perform the act on stage and perform close-up magic at the table in the way that I really love to do it.
Yeah.
And create that atmosphere and energy and be part of something bigger. And
Yeah.
so it's awesome. And the magicians have worked really hard, and really, especially that core group of the cast there. Really, we try to work as a team to make this so that people walk away and our acts work together, and you meet different characters, and that it feels like a really, not just a series of magicians, but a show.
Yeah. I feel like I grew up in New Jersey, New York area, and when I was leaving at that time, right after 9/11, which coincidentally, it all kind of went full circle for me today to have someone, a magician from New York, and I'm from New
Mm,
Jersey,
mm,
just today, and then it's 9/11. So, um, my uncle was a playwright in New York City, very well known, had shows at Radio City. And um, when I tell people hear this, they just kind of like, oh, that's great. But people who are in that area are like, wow, Radio City.
sure, right.
And So one of my biggest memories is the substance of his schedule. My dad would drop me off. My dad was a single father for a little bit, and he would drop me off with his brother, who's this uncle I'm talking about. And we would start at his apartment early in the morning, eat breakfast in his little nook of a kitchen, and he would be sitting there with a China marker like this and writing notes on what he's doing. And at that time, he was working on Pokemon Live at Radio
Mm,
City, and which not a lot of people knew was a really big thing um, at Radio City. And he wrote it and directed it, and had zero interest in Pokemon at that time. It was very early on. It had just hit America. He happened to come across these cards and was so we started in his kitchen, and we get into his car, and we drive to where he goes under parks, and rehearsals start, and he tells me, I'm magic. My world is consumed with magic. And so he hands me this magic book and a deck of cards, and I'm sitting all the way in the back of Radio City, and he's sitting in the front, very stereotypical, like a movie. And he's sitting there, and he's going like this, and I like a magician, like I'm seeing him kind of direct everybody, and there's this big air balloon that comes down from the top, and it's got the characters in it, and he's saying, oh no, right here, and all this other stuff. And I feel like there was a substance of directing theater and art at that time in New York City that dwindled down. So when I came across Speakeasy Magic, I said, it's really interesting to see that New York City is becoming real theater again. It's becoming real experiences for people to go in, whether it be Magic or Broadway or off Broadway or any of those things. And I'm just honored to be here talking to you and being
Well,
a
thank
part,
you.
and you
Well,
being a part of it, because
it's great to be part of it. Yeah.
yeah, I've seen it because of my uncle. I was exposed to so much off Broadway and one act plays, and he had a lot of children's plays and everything. So
Yeah.
I've
Awesome.
so yeah, it's incredible to have you kind of talk about it. One of the interesting things I found out was you had a really interesting virtual hybrid experience going into COVID and out of COVID with your virtual shows. Can you talk to me a little bit about the shift from live performing to turning it into an online experience? I feel like it was a little bit different, but and you accepted the challenge for sure.
Yeah. Just felt like I needed to. I was bored and trying to figure out what to do. And so when a client of mine reached out and said, we want to have you join us on a virtual thing, very early in that time period, I was pretty cautious about it. I wasn't particularly interested in, but they had been really good to me. And so I wanted to be good to them and ask,
Of
fulfill
course.
this request at least. And so what became clear to me was exactly as you say, how different that is. And I wanted to use it in a really pragmatic way to meet new relationships and clients that I wouldn't have otherwise met. So
Mm,
use this platform in a way that will lead to work that will engage people that I wouldn't have otherwise met before. And secondly, to create an experience on the Zoom where they felt like it was the best Zoom meeting they had been on. And so whatever that meant. So when those were the questions I was asking myself, both before the shows and leading up to the shows and on the shows, was is this helping me meet these two goals?
mm-hmm.
And so it was great to look, how amazing is it? Again, Magic gives us these amazing surprises. I would never have thought of doing that. Again, talking before about things I wanted to be doing growing
Right.
up in Magic, that was never one of the things I wanted to be doing. Um, but when it did occur, what an amazing gift Magic gave of this virtual experience, and how many magicians were able to have the same opportunities and be able to do that just like I was. And I thought it was really great. And really, there's a lot of issues with contemporary magicians finding opportunities and asking themselves, what is it to should be doing? And yet I was really proud of Magic in a way at that point, to see
Mm-hmm.
how many people were able to take advantage of the opportunity, seize the moment, make the best of that.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was fun. It was interesting, but I was also looking for something outside of the screen because it
Mm-hmm.
became such a dominant force in that time. And now it's almost crazy to think back on just how we were living at that time.
Yeah.
And as we transitioned out of that. So, what happened was I was looking for something else to do, and living in Brooklyn, where I live now, and Adam Rubin also living in Brooklyn. And I said to him something along the lines of, no, we're in Brooklyn, and the Dr. Hooker house, where the famous Dr. Hooker Rising cards took place,
Oh wow.
is in a beautiful neighborhood. It's here. How cool would it be if we did something outside there? And we got talking about it. And Noel Britton, for decades, and with another, other team of people helping him do this, have been doing a show in Bath, England, called Bizarre Bath, which is a walking tour with a magic component.
Hmm.
And so we got interested in maybe something like that. And we talked with Noel on the phone, and he was so helpful, giving us advice on things we never have considered before,
Mm-hmm.
because they pertain very specifically to that form of how long is an audience willing to walk in between two places? How many stops should you have? Do you need to return back to the same spot that you started, making a circle? Or can you start in one place and end in another place? Um, how do you deal with the weather? There's all these questions you never think about if you're just
Right.
doing a show in another format. And so he was really useful and kind, and also said, gave us permission to use the name Bizarre Brooklyn. And we ended up taking a really different format for the show. And it took a long time to workshop because, again, trying to figure out where do you start? Where do you end? What spots do you hit? And so what was really wonderful, I thought, in the end was that the way that we worked on the show together was all of the magic, with the exception of the magic that took place outside of Dr. Hooker's house, was done in such a way that not until you're about halfway through the magic did you realize that a magic trick was happening. It was all done in such a way that we kind of stumbled into it in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in a beautiful neighborhood, and a lot of things also, there were stops that didn't involve magic at all. And we didn't use the word magic in the marketing. As far as magic tricks go, it wasn't dubbed as a magic show. And so all of the guests were not sure exactly what to expect. And that was a really great place to be. And we had almost exclusively New Yorkers come to the show. And we ended up having really amazing press and leading those sold out run that we did for that time period. But also, I'll say, I mean, there was not a lot of competition. All those Broadway shows were not open at that time. And so people were so hungry to do something. And it was great to
Right.
offer them this really safe and exciting way to do that in a small group outside. And so Adam is an amazing collaborator, and he's really has a very specific set of talents. And so he was able to write this incredible script. We were able to work together to put together different pieces of magic, and we would say, why don't you take this on? I'll take this on. And at the end, what we ended up doing was we performed the shows a solo, but we would trade off performances. So I would do it one week, he would do it the next week. And that was such a great way to do it also, because you would get to
Mm-hmm.
see, I'd watch him do it and learn, oh, he does that this way. That's kind of interesting. Maybe I should try it that way. And he would
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing. And we'd emphasize different points. And
That's
there was a
fun.
couple parts where we even
Yeah.
performed different pieces of magic. Um, and so that was really wonderful. And there actually, I can't say anything about specifically just yet what this is, but we haven't really done the show with the exception of one private performance since 2021. And yet, I think there's actually an exciting future for the show coming up, maybe relatively soon. So
Excellent.
keep your eyes peeled
Excellent.
for that.
Whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be great, though. I knew I was going to ask you that later on. I knew there was something I'm sure you're tinkering with that's going to be happening, or
Yeah, I
that's
think
great.
I have something this week actually about that. So it's in progress. We're moving forward on something.
Well, what do you think draws you? You've performed for celebrities, you've consulted, we've kind of touched on a bunch. What do you think draws these people who are looking for a magician or a consultant? Well, why Alex Boyce? What do you think draws them to you? You know, what?
It might be a better question for them than me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All I can do is try to do my very best and try to exceed someone's expectations. And I do try to be careful to only take on things that I feel like, based on my knowledge and experience and my work, that I can exceed their expectations. So
Mm,
maybe there's something to that, is I try
yeah.
not to say yes to things that I'm not confident that I'll be able to exceed. Again, that's an important aspect of that, exceed their expectations in. And so, there's little bits of advice that stick with you. Derek Hughes said something to me once along the lines of that the job starts when you've completed the job. And
Mm,
my reading of that was that only when you've met all of the expectations of the client or the audience, then does the job start. And so my hope would be that by working hard and with some luck and with some great advice and mentors and people helping me out, as a lot of people have really looked out for me, that hopefully by taking on experiences where I feel like I can do something really special, really add value and do something wonderful, that people see that and then they want to come to me and do something else or do more.
what advice, to wrap it up a little bit, what advice do you think you've evolved a little bit from? You're always evolving. I think as magicians, we're always looking for new ways and new techniques and different things. What advice do you have for magicians, the younger generations coming into magic? Where do they start? You know, what resources and what do you recommend?
Well, I would certainly try to then, if you're a young person in magic, or you're young in magic, maybe you're not a young person, but you're young in magic, try to expose yourself to as much as possible so you can start to develop taste, because I think that
Mm,
is one of the great talents of the magician, is taste,
mm-hmm.
discerning what is good and what is not good, both
Hmm.
in trick, effect, method, persona, scripting, performance location, costuming. I mean, all of these are choices, and developing taste in that is really useful. And I think you can do that by exposing yourself to as much as possible, both in magic and also in movies and other theater. And I think it's really a great thing to do. And then my other thing I might share is based on my limited experience is follow what you're passionate about and don't question so much why it is that you're excited or passionate about something. If you love it, just go with that. It's surprising to me how many magicians perform a style of magic, piece of magic that they're not excited about. They're not thrilled to be doing. There's only so much time in the performance. Why not fill it with things that you really want to be doing? And there's the great side of magic of the academia to study and learn and think about things that you're
Hmm.
not thrilled and going to be performing for people and use that. But when it comes time to performing for people, only do what you're really thrilled to be doing. And that is one thing that surprises me about magicians is how often they're dissatisfied with their own work and
Hmm.
uh, they're not continuing to learn a new routine.
Yeah,
Like the
interesting.
piece of magic that you're doing, you should do something else.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
there's so much magic out there. There's so much wonderful published magic that there's no reason you should be doing anything that you're not really excited about.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it's also really hard to fake that excitement and that passion. I think it's very hard to fake. And so I think one of the great reasons to research and to try to study and learn magic is so you can have some real earned confidence
Hmm.
in your performance that when you're doing this piece of magic, that at least in that moment you can believe this is the best version of this in the whole
Hmm.
world, and I can't wait to share it with you. Doesn't even need to be said explicitly. The audience can feel this. Tom Reese's Seven Veils is a really useful thing to think about, and it really, I think, if you haven't looked into that before, it's in the Magic Rainbow, and it's also uh, talked about in Our Magic, the great film documentary that came out a few years ago.
Hmm.
Um, I had that posted on my wall in college because there's a lot of things I was doing in school. I was studying theater, film, and television. And so with them, and I had academia classes, and I had classes where I was in all black and laying on the floor and pounding my chest and go, hoo, hoo, ha, 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 making these noises and
Yeah.
doing all kinds of weird experimental um, performance stuff. And I would often get to the end of the day and going, what am I doing? Like, what is this
Hmm.
for? And the Seven Veils was really rich and useful to me. The reason I put it up on my wall was because is a great reminder that while the audience might not explicitly see and be able to point to, oh, he's done voice and speech work before. Oh, he's taken a lot of movement and dance classes before. They just see that I'm comfortable on stage, hopefully.
Hmm.
They just can hear my voice in a clear way, hopefully. And so that disappears, and they don't know why. They're not able to articulate why the performance was strong for them, but they experience that. And so I think that's a really good reminder that your work, that your research, your thinking, your love, your passion of magic, those they have an impact on the audience. And the more you feed them and the more that you follow that passion, the more it will continue to grow and feed itself. And so invest in your passion, follow it.
Yeah, that's a great segue to my last question I'll ask you is what things do you that are non-magic that you think helped you make your magic better and better as a performer? And you've named some of those things which are really interesting. How do you do like how do you I guess as a performer you say, well, I need to work more on not being so nervous in front of people, so I'll go do X, Y, and Z. What
Mm-hmm.
was it for you? Did you notice there were certain things that needed improvement and you said, how do I do that? And oh well, this is a way to do that. And
Yeah, sometimes I think I'm always asking myself that. It's like, where is it that I'm deficient amongst my skill sets and how can I improve in that area? And sometimes it's reaching out to somebody I admire and saying, hey, I really admire the way you do this. Would I be able to ask you some questions about that or be able to help you? I'm working on the specific problem.
hmm.
Sometimes it's that. And sometimes it's less linear. there's things you ask about outside of magic. Sometimes it's really just, I love movies. I love watching great movies. And so I try to watch as many of those as possible. And sometimes things occur to me in that, the ending of Whiplash. I remember watching it and going, I've never really seen a magic performance that has the same ending as this. I
Mm,
don't know what it would be, but what would an ending of a magic piece that was done in that rhythm and that tempo and that style and that the poetry of that moment, what would that look like? Um, and so yeah, sometimes just exposing yourself to things and they reveal themselves to you.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it's really just most important to just find what you enjoy and what you like and what gets you excited and continue to do that. And my family was always really great at that too. My grandparents, my parents, there was a lot of people who were really discovered something that they liked, they enjoyed their time with, and then just stuck with that. And when
Hmm.
there wasn't something they liked anymore, you change. You know, no
Yeah.
one's forcing you.
Yeah.
Change. Stick with, follow, follow your things. Follow, change with the changes. Follow what your passion is.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find you? Where your magic, if they want to come see you, I'll put
Yeah.
links in
So
the show notes and
absolutely. So I spend my time doing three mainly different pieces of magic performance. Uh, the number one being Speakeasy Magic. That's my home base. It's where you can come and see me in that amazing show that we were talking about before. Speakeasy Magic, and it's got a K at the end. At the end, it's stylized that way. And then my other two performances, the most frequent, are performing at social events. People have some fancy party, and that's performing there, and then corporate events where usually that's the most traveling, usually performing for people's clients or their staffs. And I really like to do that as well. So beyond the performances online, my website is boycemagic.com. It's my last name, boycemagic.com. And if you're a magician, if you're not a magician, you might enjoy taking a look at that and seeing some highlight video and some pictures and some information. I think it's worth taking a look at if you haven't been before. And then most actively on social media on Instagram, that's my last name and then my first name, Boyce Alex. And you can see some cool stuff there. Most recently, I shot a cool thing with Hal Schulman of a Coca-Cola piece of magic with a Coke bottle that is inspired by one of the most famous ads, uh, TV ads ever. It's from Coca-Cola, so you can take a look at that. And also, we shot a handling of Wild Card. If you're a magician, you can take a look at that too, and you might enjoy that.
very great. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me, and we'll have to do it again.
Cool, my pleasure. Thanks for chatting.